Okay, let's upgrade the lathe. So we can see we're currently running lathe 5.3, Acorn Lathe Pro. First thing to do is utility menu, create report. We want to make sure that we have a copy of the setup as it is. So what I'll do is I'll go to my USB drive, Centroid. Let me see if I have something specifically for this machine already. No, I don't. And I'm going to just create a new folder. Call this audit. Actually, I'll rename it later. That's fine. I'll just rename that afterwards. Copying files. Now, what we need to do is that gives us a copy of the report. Not as much to back up from, but just to have. We also want to do Acorn Wizard. And what we'll do here is we will export all the settings into a readable PDF that we can compare to later. In the old days before this, we used to have to basically take a photograph of every screen to know what we had. Whereas now if we do this, we can simply press Ctrl P if I remember correctly, and it does a print to PDF print. And you'll see in the background it's busy printing a bunch of pages. And it has the settings. So if we go to Centroid there, and that folder which I created, we will call that audit CNC, and we will use this extensively to allow us to reconfigure the machine. So before I close this, let's just check that that document is actually stored. So we are going to Centroid, and we can see audit CNC. So actually, if we open that, I'm not going to worry about restoring that. What you can see is all the settings. So if we scroll down, and actually what I'll do is I'll just keep that open because I will be referring to that shortly. Okay, what we now need to do is we need to close this, and we can effectively shut down. The only other thing we need to do is make a copy of the install itself. So if you go to C drive, so CNC-M is mole, CNC-T is turn, which is on this machine. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to Control C, copy that, and I'm going to go back to my USB drive, and where I have Centroid, and I have a new folder. Let me just stick it in there, and there you can see the report from earlier as well. So let me just do this. And what this does is it copies everything, which effectively, if you have an issue with the install, you can just move this back into the replacement folder. Centroid is a bit strange that it doesn't install it like a traditional Windows program, where it writes into the registry, etc. It simply places the files into this folder. Now, the other reason this is interesting is because my homing macro might be individual. Certainly my ATC macro is specific to this machine, and I don't want to have to recreate that, so I can just copy that across. So we'll do that copy quickly, and then we'll see there's 1500 items being pulled across. If you've got custom VCPs as well, so the visual control panel, all of that will be stored here. Okay, what you guys will see as well is that the settings on the new 5.4 is slightly different. They are pretty much aligned, but you'll see there's a few small variants as I've already upgraded one machine. So now we've done this backup. Now, I don't know if officially we need to uninstall the software, but what I do is I tend to uninstall the software. So I go to add remove programs, just go to control panel, remove programs, add or remove programs, and I'm going to uninstall lathe, uninstall. So that is done. I'm going to leave mill actually, let me uninstall that as well. And I think that's an old copy of another machine. So I will remove that as well. I don't want to have any conflicting versions on. So now the machine has no install on it whatsoever. So we go back to the USB drive, and you can see I've got 5.4.0.2. So there's been 2 bug fixes since 5.4 has come out. And this one only addresses 2 or 3 items. So I don't think there's a lot left for in terms of bugs that we're going to see on 5.4. So I'm quite comfortable now that I can upgrade my machine. The other machine I did on 5.4.1, but that unless I have a specific issue that I see, I will just leave it on that. So careful here. So we want Acorn Wizard with Wizard setup, and on this machine I just want lathe. PC tuner I'm not going to worry about because the machine's already been set up. Metric. So here you can use, if you had an existing VCP, you can say keep VCP. I would assume therefore you would have had to have left the install program installed, but I'm going to just use a stock VCP. I don't bother on this machine. It doesn't have anything kind of fancy enough to need a stock VCP. It's a very straightforward 2-axis lathe with a automatic tool changer. So that will install, and effectively as soon as that's up and running, we just launch it. One thing that you will notice is that the wizard is now a lot faster to get into and to make settings. So we found an Ethernet adapter. Do you want to continue using this port? Yes, which is quite typical on a machine that was set up already. So I'm just going to minimize that. If I now run, actually I think these shortcuts should still work if I go to lathe. So the first thing it'll do is a firmware upgrade, which is pretty standard. So firmware being installed, MPU rebooting, do not power off Acorn. This doesn't take long. You'll have to just bear with me as I quickly go and recycle the power once this is upgraded. Okay, upgrade complete. Hardware cycle is now, so just bear with me. Okay, so that's now been done. Press enter, and it, from memory, I believe it restarts automatically. Okay, if not, no problem. Let's just run CNC12. So now what we have is we've got effectively a brand new setup, but it has no configuration. So whatever you do, don't try and run anything. It will create a weekly report because that's what it does when it's not been run for a while. You'll notice that it says 5.4.0.2, Acorn lathe free. Now we'll come back to what we need to do for the license to upgrade it. We can import the old license, but we don't unlock all the 5.4 features such as runtime graphics. If your license is less than a year old, you just email Centroid and they will upgrade that for you kind of within a business day at no cost. Okay, so you'll notice now when I go utility menu, whatever you do, don't try and run the machine, because nothing is set up and it probably won't work anyway. So utility menu, Acorn Wizard, and the first thing you'll notice is how quick it is. Now this is a bit of a tedious exercise, but it gets done once and that's it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to alt tab between my settings that we saved here and effectively these settings. Now I'm going to try and run through them pretty quickly. From memory, there's not a lot that gets changed. Certainly on the first page, this is the same. So if you look at what I have saved here and you look at what's there, it's the same. Input definitions, if I alt tab, so what I do is I just alt tab between the two, as long as you don't introduce a third thing you're trying to kind of control. I suppose you could use split screen as well. I don't know how well that would work. So let me go alt tab. Now if I just bear with me, I just want to try and get a window size here that works well. Okay, I just need to be able to read the items on the screen without too much of a hassle. So when I look at the next page, I've got home limit all 1, tool touch off triggered, which is my tool sensor, and e-stop OK. Now you'll see that that's got green. So what does green mean? Green means it's normally open, I believe, whereas red is normally closed. And with the tool, the probe settings, they're always gray because there is a specific setup page for them. So home limit all. So all I do now is I go into this, I'll tab back, I find home limit all, and I drag that to 1 and I make sure the color is right. I then just double check what I have on the next page. Tool touch off triggered, and that is input 4. So I look for tool touch off triggered, and I drag that to 4. And my e-stop is right. Now, if for whatever reason you can't find them here, you can go to all there. However, on a lathe, you should have everything that you need for a lathe, but just if you ever find that you don't have anything there, you can go through the different options there as well. So this is the first page done. Output definitions, if I go to my save document, all I have on this machine is spin forward, spin reverse, and no fault out 8. So spin forward, which effectively is to spin the spindle forward. Okay, double check that you take the right one. Spin forward, spin reverse, and no fault out. So in my case, that is forward spindle, reverse spindle, because this machine can cut both directions. And no fault out is just an enabler for the drive. So if it is in the status of no fault out, it enables this, which is a relay which allows my drives to effectively be on, not powered, but enabled. If I go to the next page, and also for benefit, you don't have to write these to the PLC every time you do each page. At least I don't, and I've never had a problem with not doing that. So on the next page, we have outputs, axis configuration, C-axis. Now, I don't know if the menu is the same, so interesting that I have that option there. I'm not sure why that has come up on that page, C-axis. I don't use the C-axis, so I'm going to just ignore it. Okay, axis configuration. So on mine, ZXNA. The reason why A is important here is A is being used for the ATC. So I have a servo motor on the on the tool turret, and I manage the macro according to this. So those figures have to be correct. These are all pretty straightforward. 10,005, and I've got 10,000 in terms of the speed for all of them. So what I will do here is 10,000. I'm going to just copy that because I'm using that figure in quite a few places. So I'm just copying and pasting those into all of those. Now this is 5, this was 5, and this was 21.6. So why is it 21.6? It just happens to be 21.6, which is calculated by trial and error to work out how many times the turret moves in 360 degrees, how many times I need to turn it to get these figures to allow a 360 degree full rotation of the turret. That's just the way I like doing my maths on the ATC. You can do it in different ways as well. So for these, they're all 10,000. Okay. So now we've seen an issue. This value must be between 1 and 3,000. And why is that the case? The reason for that is because we're only running 100,000 steps per second, and we've hit a limit on the board. Now, if you look at my settings there, you'll see 400 steps there. So the only way I can now enable that is I need to put this into 400 here. Now, the reason we run as low as we can is it's better noise immunity. If you run as high as 400,000, that's the only way to get the speeds that I would like on this machine. But you are more susceptible to noise. So, okay, ignore that one. I've just pasted there. We're not using that axis. So let me quickly do those. Okay, so slow jog. I think I had 1,000 for all of those. Correct. 1,000. Now, the only other thing I've got here is I've got travel limit, so minus 375, minus 200, minus 375, and minus 200. That's because I'm putting it in the wrong place. Negative in the negative one, minus 375, minus 375. It's good that the system double checks that the input validation is correct. Okay, so that should be it on that page. Yes, yes, no, yes, direction reversal, yes, yes, no, yes. I'm going to double check this when we run the machine, when I'm going to move the machine slowly, on the reason that on my previous upgrade, mine were all inversed, and I had to inverse them to get them right, and I'm not sure why. Homing and pairing, we will have something pretty simple, which will be automatic homing, machine seeks to home. So let's do them one at a time. Machine seeks to home. Now, the questions that are going to be asked are which direction. So axis 1 is plus, plus, in place, in place. What does that mean? It means it'll home to the positive in Z and X, and in place means that I don't want A to try and home, because on my tool turret there's no home. I physically drive it to where I want it to home, which is a parked tool location. And then in terms of the sequence, it's 1, 2. Ignore the fact that it's got 1, 3 there, because it doesn't home anything further. So it's 1, 2, and those are both positive. So positive, positive. That's a 1. That's a 2. We have no pairing because it's not a router, or it doesn't have dual Y switches. Let's have a look. Is there anything else we need to set? Not that I can see. We will obviously double check all of this before we. So here you can see there's a few different menu options that we don't normally see. Advanced hardware, we're not doing anything there. Okay. So we will do spindle next. So encoder, yes, minus 5,000. So why do I have minus 5,000? It's just got to do with the way my encoder spins. If you have plus 5,000, it counts backwards on my machine. So I do use ratios because this is a Harrison M300 that's got 3 different gearbox settings. It's actually got multiple, but I tend to leave them all in, let's call it the fastest speed across high, medium, and low. So spindle, yes. Encoder counts minus 5,000. Minus 5,000. 2,750. 100 is the minimum spindle speed. I don't want it to just sit there and idle and hum the machine or hum the motor. 0.2345. 0.2345. I will explain shortly how these get calculated in 0.112. 0.112. So the way to calculate these is put your machine in the fastest speed that you run, check the speed with encoder, 2,750 is my speed, and then when you run them in medium and low, you simply measure them with encoder and it will tell you 600, I think mine's 600 RPM and 900 RPM. Those are just a divisible into that. So 600 of that is 0.12, for example. I will show you when the machine runs in a bit. I don't think we do. This is interesting. We need to set horizontal and rear. This is to make sure that the lathe setup is physically correct, because you can have a turret below or above the cutting plane, and from the left or from the right. So mine is G98 feet per minute is what I prefer. Actually, I'm going to set that to G99 feet per revolution. That's more common for what I prefer to do. So I'm going to change that horizontal and rear. G98 horizontal and rear. Okay, we're not going to do speed variation settings because it's not something I use at the moment. I might do it in future. We don't have rigid tapping set up at all. I will do it at some point. PWM we don't use. C-axis, we've got nothing there. So let me just make sure that that's right. Okay, next setting is touch probe. Now, PWM, okay, touch probe. PLC input mechanical closed. Now you'll see there's nothing there because it knows it's 4 based on the setting. 0, 300, 125, 127, these are all the same. Probe and detection enable, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then there's some speeds there. I'm going to leave those all standard. I'm not going to go a lot into the touch probe setup because I don't fully understand all of the nuances of probing it. I'm still learning, but this is the same as what I've got on the other setup. So tool touch off, let's go to tool touch off. So input for mechanical closed, yes. Input for mechanical closed, yes. How do we know open or closed? All I do is I connect up a touch probe that I'd like to set it up, and then I check the status and I make sure that it works according to what I'm expecting. It's good to inhibit the spindle if you do detect the probe, because you don't want to spin the probe, the spindle with your probe in there, because that costs money. Okay, stylus size. I'm not going to explain these. Please look at one of the Centroid videos on how the probes are configured, but in my case this is 10, this is 4. And I've reduced mine down to 5 just to save some time. I don't think a retract of that much is needed. Actually, that explains those measurements quite well. Okay, input devices. Okay, now we've basically got the machine set up. These are some fairly straightforward configuration options. Now, I have got a wireless MPG for this machine. It's not physically connected at the moment, so you'll see that we'll get an error when we start. I just need to install a Pro Ultimate license. So because I haven't enabled the license yet, it's not allowing me the option. I will come back to it later. I don't have enough MPGs for my machine, so I share them between them as I can. So USB Bob we don't use. Drive signal mapping I don't use. ATC we do use, and that is probably the second last most important thing for us to set up. So access driven turret. So access driven turret. Okay, we will come back to this. I need to import the license. So let's come back to that. CNC control, disable that. I like to have this set at 200% speed override. And I think that's going to be largely it. If there's anything there that we need to come back to, we can. So I'm going to just minimize this just in case I need to come back to it. So right settings to the control. So this will now, PLC has changed, so I need to just go and recycle the board. Okay, so we should now be up and running. What we need to do is import the license. Now, the license file will be in the backup and in the reports. Okay, so we don't have that installed at the moment, so let's go utility menu, CNC12 license. Now, on 5.4 onwards, there's now a new license mechanism, which is actually much easier. You can now actually just buy a license online direct with Centroid, and it is a system which you need to be online for. You can go and click what you need, pay, and get your license. In this case, we're going to import a license. Now, what I need to do is find where that license has gone, which will be USB, Centroid. So if we recall, we actually saved that backup here. Now, that means that that license will be in the old install file, and that should therefore work. License successfully imported. Now what you also see is that this menu has changed, because now it says a lot of these things are included, or to upgrade if you want some more features. So we escape this, utility menu, Acorn wizard. Let's go back and now set the things we could not set before. So ATC setup, access driven turret. If you remember, we had an error on this the last time. Okay, so now let's set up the ATC. 8, no, 0.1 and 1. So 8, no, 0.1 and 1. I'm not going to explain where these figures come from. They're quite complex. They're very much based on your personal setup for your tool turret, but that's now set up. Now I just want to double check custom tool change macro use. This is important. If you don't set this, when you make changes to the PLC in future, it's going to overwrite it with Centroid's own version of the tool change. In my case, I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to say I have a custom tool in place, and I'm going to say yes and save that. Now what we're going to do is it's asking us to restart Centroid CNC. I'm going to shut down Centroid completely. I'm going to minimize that screen, and you see that we've got nothing open. I will now go into the folder where we have saved our backup, and I'm going to simply find the file, which is CNC. So CNC TCH is tool change. Copy that. On a mill, that will be called M6 Funk. On a lathe, it's called this. I learned that the hard way when I couldn't figure out how to get one working, and it was the wrong file. Now all we do is we go into the installed Centroid, so CNC T for turn, and we simply place that file, replace this file because this is our version of the file. We don't need the old one. Now if we close this and run, we should now theoretically be up and running. But what I'm going to do, just to be sure, is I'm going to move, okay, we don't have a MPG installed. I will connect that later. Now, you may not hear that, but I can hear, as soon as I click that, I can hear my servo drives enabling. And I'm going to just move, and I don't know if it's in the camera view, but no, it's not. But to the right, we can actually see that I have movement on my machine. So that is effectively installed, upgraded to Centroid 5.4.0.2. And yeah, it takes 10-15 minutes. Take your time, do it once, and you then have the new features. If I load a job, I can show you, amongst other things, some of the changes that we now have in the lathe, on the lathe side. Okay, so the reason it's not letting me load the job is it wants me to home the machine first. So I'm going to home the machine. So it is homing. It's pretty slow because there's quite a big bed. We can see that the machine coordinates now are moving. They will reset once it homes, because effectively these are the machine coordinates from when the machine was powered on. The machine's been offline for a couple of weeks. But when this now homes, we'll see that these will reset, and it will also set the, it will then update your coordinates over here. Okay, there we have it. So everything is set. Now this is not correct for part 0. Clearly on a lathe we wouldn't be sitting there, but by default with the machines started from scratch, this is what we see. Now you will actually see that my tool change thinks it's in tool position 0. I will sort that later. It's just that my tool change has to be it has to be synchronized when the machine starts. Because there's no home switch, I need to set it to a certain position. It's very bespoke to this machine, so I'm not going to include how that works on this video. But effectively now, if we do a graph job, traffic, okay, and the reason for this warning is because of where my zeros are set on the machine at the moment. So what we'll see now on some of the graphics is much better improved graphics. Certainly on the mill, we've got full 3-dimensional view. I'm not actually sure on a lathe if we can see 3-dimensional view or not. Probably not. I will double check that. Anyway, so there you are, upgraded to 5.4. Hope that video was useful for some of you. Thank you.